I... I don't know where to start, she began, her voice choked with emotion. Everything's fallen apart. Derek, he's gone. My life, it's over. I remained silent, watching her, listening not just to her words, but to her thoughts. I need him. I need him to save me. He's my only hope. I made a mistake, Ethan, she continued, tears streaming down her face. A terrible mistake. I should have never left you. I should have never listened to him. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, and I heard the truth, the raw, unfiltered truth echoing in her mind. If he takes me back, I'll own him again. I'll be set for life. He's rich now, successful. I can manipulate him. I know I can. My lips curled into a cold, mirthless smile. She hadn't changed. You don't love me, Madison, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. You never did. Our apartment, once a haven of shared dreams and whispered promises, felt like a museum exhibit, a display of Madison's aspirations, not ours. Designer furniture I couldn't afford, abstract art I didn't understand, a lifestyle I was perpetually struggling to maintain. I worked my ass off at a dead-end IT job, patching networks and resetting passwords, while she flitted between social events, networking with the right people, chasing a vaguely defined career in influencing. I loved her, though. Or, at least, I loved the idea of her, the woman I thought she was when we first met, before the veneer of ambition and materialism had hardened into a diamond-sharp shell. Tonight, I'd come home early, buzzing with nervous energy. I'd finally finished my side project, a data encryption algorithm I'd been pouring my nights and weekends into. I had a meeting with a potential investor tomorrow, a long shot, but a shot nonetheless. I'd envisioned this moment, sharing the news with Madison, celebrating with cheap champagne, maybe even daring to dream of a future where I wasn't constantly drowning in debt. I found her in the living room, scrolling through her phone, her perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed in concentration. Hey, I said, my voice filled with a hopeful anticipation I instantly regretted. Guess what? She didn't look up. Can it wait, Ethan? I'm in the middle of something. It's just... I finished the algorithm. The one I told you about? The investor meeting is tomorrow. She finally looked up, her expression unreadable. Oh, that's nice. The lack of enthusiasm stung. Nice, Madison, this could be it. This could be our chance to... To what, Ethan? She interrupted, her voice sharp. To finally afford that organic dog food you're so obsessed with? To upgrade to a slightly less depressing apartment? The words hit me like a physical blow. To build a life together, I mumbled, my voice barely a whisper. To be happy. She laughed, a cold, brittle sound that sent shivers down my spine. Happiness, Ethan? Happiness is a Birkin bag, not a beta test. And then she delivered the final blow, the words that would shatter my world, the words that would echo in my mind for years to come. I'm leaving you, Ethan, she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. I need a man with ambition, someone who's going places. You're just going nowhere. She didn't even flinch. She didn't cry, she didn't shout, she didn't show any sign of remorse or regret. Just cold, hard, brutal honesty. Or perhaps honesty disguised as cruelty. But I love you, I stammered. The words pathetic, desperate, even to my own ears. You're sweet, Ethan, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. But sweet doesn't pay the bills. Sweet doesn't get you a table at Le Cirque. Sweet doesn't get you followers. She had it all planned out. She stood up, smoothing down her designer dress, a dress I'd probably paid for with my dwindling savings. I'm moving in with Derek, she said, as if she were announcing a change in the weather. "He's everything you're not." Derek. The smarmy trust fund CEO she'd been networking with for the past few months. I'd suspected, of course, but I'd refused to believe it. I'd clung to the illusion of our love, of our future, like a drowning man clinging to a piece of driftwood. "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Ethan," she said, her voice softening slightly, but not with compassion, with pity. "Just accept it. Move on. You'll find someone. Eventually." She walked out, her designer heels clicking on the hardwood floor, leaving me standing there, alone in the ruins of my life. I don't remember much after that. I remember drinking, a lot. I remember wandering the streets, the city lights blurring into a meaningless kaleidoscope of color and sound. I remember the rain, cold and relentless, soaking me to the bone. I remember feeling nothing. A hollow, empty void where my heart used to be. I was worthless, a failure, a nobody. Madison's words echoed in my mind, a cruel, relentless mantra. "You'll never be anything, Ethan." I found myself standing on a street corner, the rain pouring down, my vision blurry with tears and alcohol. The crosswalk signal changed, a green figure beckoning me forward. I stepped off the curb, my mind numb, my body moving on autopilot. And then, a blinding light, a deafening roar, a searing pain. The truck. I never saw it coming. It ran the red light, a metal behemoth bearing down on me, unstoppable, unforgiving. The impact threw me through the air like a rag doll. I landed hard, the pavement a brutal embrace, and then darkness. There was no light, no sound, no sensation, just nothingness. A void. An absence of everything. I was nowhere and everywhere. Time had no meaning. Seconds, minutes, hours, years. They all blurred together, indistinguishable, irrelevant. I was floating, drifting, suspended in an infinite expanse of emptiness. Then fragments, glimmers, flashes of memory, like broken pieces of a shattered mirror. Madison's face, beautiful and cold, her eyes devoid of any warmth, any love. The clinking of champagne glasses, the murmur of voices, the celebration of a success I would never share. The sterile white walls of a hospital room, the rhythmic beeping of machines, the hushed whispers of doctors. My own reflection, in a cracked mirror, a face I barely recognized, haunted by pain and betrayal. My dreams, my shattered, broken, discarded dreams. A successful business, a happy family, a life of purpose. The fragments swirled, coalesced, faded, then returned, sharper, clearer, more painful. I was reliving my life, my failures, my regrets, my lost hopes. But there was something else, too. A growing sense of anger. A burning rage that simmered beneath the surface of my despair. A desire for revenge. The nothingness began to shift, to change. It was no longer a void, but a tunnel, a vortex, pulling me towards something. I felt a sensation of movement, of acceleration, of being propelled through space and time. It was terrifying, exhilarating, overwhelming. And then a light, a faint, flickering light, growing stronger, brighter, drawing me closer. Voices, muffled, indistinct, but real. I was being pulled back to life, back to something. My consciousness flickered like a dying flame, struggling to reignite. I was almost there, almost back. The first sensation was pain, a throbbing ache in my head, a sharp stabbing pain in my chest, a dull, persistent pain throughout my entire body. The second sensation was sound. the rhythmic beeping of a machine, the muffled murmur of voices, the sterile, antiseptic smell of a hospital room. I opened my eyes, slowly, painfully, blinking against the harsh fluorescent lights. I was in a bed, surrounded by medical equipment, my body covered in bandages and tubes. "He's awake!" a woman's voice exclaimed. A nurse rushed to my side, her face a mixture of relief and professional concern. "Mr. Holloway? Can you hear me?" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry, my voice a raspy croak. Water?" She held a cup with a straw to my lips, and I drank greedily, the cool water soothing my parched throat. Where am I?" I managed to ask, my voice still weak. "You're in the hospital, Mr. Holloway," the nurse replied. "You were in an accident. You've been unconscious for 3 days." An accident. The truck. Madison. The memories flooded back, a tidal wave of pain and betrayal. I closed my eyes, trying to shut it all out, trying to retreat back into the comforting darkness. But then I heard it, a voice, but not the nurse's, not spoken aloud. "God, I hope my shift ends soon. This guy looks awful." My eyes snapped open. The nurse was smiling at me, her expression kind and attentive. But the voice, it was inside my head. I stared at her, my mind reeling. Had I imagined it? Was it a hallucination, a side effect of the medication? Then, another voice. This time a man's. "Poor bastard. Probably doesn't have insurance." The doctor walked into the room, his face beaming with professional cheer. Well, Mr. Holloway. Good to see you back with us. How are you feeling?" I didn't answer. I was too stunned, too confused, too terrified. I could hear their thoughts. I could read their minds. It was impossible, insane. But it was happening. I experimented, cautiously at first, focusing on the nurse, then the doctor, then other patients in nearby beds. Their thoughts flowed into my mind, a jumble of anxieties, hopes, fears, desires. I wonder if he'll remember anything. Asterisk. "I need a cigarette. Asterisk. Is that test result back yet?" "When's lunch?" Asterisk. It was overwhelming, a cacophony of mental noise. But amidst the chaos, I began to discern patterns, to filter out the irrelevant, to focus on specific individuals. I could do it. I could actually read minds. My initial reaction was fear. This was unnatural. A violation of privacy, of the fundamental rules of human interaction. But then, another feeling began to emerge. A sense of power. I knew things. Things people didn't want me to know. Their secrets, their lies, their hidden agendas. I had an advantage, an edge, a weapon. And for the first time since Madison had walked out of my life, since I'd been hit by that truck, since I'd woken up in this hospital bed with a strange, terrifying new ability, I felt a flicker of hope. This was my second chance. And I wouldn't waste it. I knew what to do. Leaving the hospital felt like stepping into a different world. Physically, I was still weak, recovering from the accident. But my mind was a whirlwind of possibilities. A landscape transformed by this incredible, terrifying new ability. The city was a symphony of thoughts, a cacophony of inner voices. Walking down the street was like being bombarded by 1,000 radio stations, all broadcasting at once. Anxieties, desires, petty grievances, grand ambitions, lies, secrets, hopes, fears. It was overwhelming, nauseating, almost unbearable. Gotta remember to pick up milk. I hope she likes the flowers. Did I leave the stove on? That promotion should have been mine. I hate my boss. She's cute. It was a constant stream of consciousness, a torrent of unfiltered thoughts flooding my mind. I clutched my head, stumbling, feeling like I was drowning in the noise. But slowly, gradually, I began to adapt. I learned to filter, to focus, to tune out the background noise and zero in on specific individuals, specific thoughts. It was like learning to isolate a single instrument in a complex orchestral piece. I started practicing, experimenting. I'd stand on a busy street corner, watching the pedestrians, trying to anticipate their movements. He's going to cross now, I'd think, focusing on a man glancing at the traffic light. And he would, stepping off the curb just as I'd predicted. I'd go into a store, listening to the shopkeeper's thoughts, anticipating his sales pitch. I need to get rid of this old stock. I'll offer him a discount. I'm interested in that jacket, I'd say, before he could even open his mouth. Would you consider a 10% discount? The shopkeeper would be startled, momentarily thrown off balance, but he'd agree, eager to make the sale. It was like having a superpower. I could predict people's actions, anticipate their needs, exploit their weaknesses. I could navigate the world with an uncanny awareness, a sixth sense that gave me an almost unfair advantage. The potential was staggering. I could use this ability to make money, to gain power, to influence people, to get revenge. The thought of Madison, of her betrayal, of her cold, dismissive words, sent a jolt of anger through me. She thought I was a loser, a nobody, a failure. She'd left me for someone richer, someone more ambitious. But now I had something she could never have imagined. I had the power to know her thoughts, her secrets, her desires. I could manipulate her, control her, destroy her. The idea was intoxicating, terrifying, and utterly irresistible. I was no longer the victim. I was the predator. And the world, with all its hidden thoughts and secret agendas, was my hunting ground. It was time to play the game, but this time by my rules. Money. I needed money. Not just to survive, but to build a foundation, to create a platform from which to launch my plans. And my newfound ability was the perfect tool. I started small, a local poker game, a smoky backroom filled with grizzled veterans and cocky amateurs. I sat down at the table, my heart pounding, my senses on high alert. Pocket aces. I'm going all in. Damn, nothing. Got a bluff. He's nervous. He's got nothing. The thoughts of the other players flowed into my mind, a stream of intentions, calculations, and anxieties. I knew their hands, their strategies, their tells. It was like playing with the cards face up. I won, consistently. I played it cool, not too greedy, not too obvious. But I cleaned them out, slowly, methodically, accumulating a small but significant pile of cash. Next, a job. I needed a foothold, a legitimate source of income, a way to blend back into society. I applied for a low-level position at a tech startup, a company I knew, from my future knowledge, was on the verge of a major breakthrough. The interview was a joke. The interviewer, a young, ambitious HR manager, was clearly unimpressed with my resume, my lack of recent experience. He's not qualified, but the boss said to hire someone cheap. I smiled, leaned forward, and said, I understand your concerns, but I assure you, I'm a fast learner, I'm dedicated, and I'm passionate about this company's mission. In fact, I have a few ideas about how to improve your current marketing strategy. I proceeded to outline a series of suggestions, ideas that I knew, from reading the interviewer's mind, were exactly what the company was looking for. Wow, he's actually pretty good. Maybe I misjudged him. I got the job. The stock market was the next logical step. I spent hours in the library, poring over financial reports, listening to the whispers and rumors that circulated among the traders and brokers. Insider info, Company X is about to announce a major acquisition. Sell, sell, sell. Company Y is heading for bankruptcy. This stock is undervalued. It's going to soar. I invested carefully, strategically, using my mind reading to anticipate market trends, to buy low and sell high. My profits soared. I was accumulating wealth at an astonishing rate. I was no longer Ethan Cross, the broke, unemployed loser. I was becoming someone else, someone confident, powerful, resourceful, someone who knew the secrets of the universe, the hidden thoughts of everyone around him. I was becoming a strategist, a player, a master of the game. And Madison? Madison was just a pawn in my grand scheme. A pawn I was about to checkmate. It was my time to start winning. It was inevitable, I suppose, that I would run into Madison eventually. The city, despite its size, felt small sometimes, especially when you were deliberately orbiting the same social circles. I was at a charity gala, one of those lavish, over-the-top events filled with wealthy socialites and ambitious climbers. I'd acquired an invitation, using my newfound wealth and a carefully cultivated persona of a successful, enigmatic entrepreneur. I'd changed my appearance, subtly but effectively. A new haircut, stylish clothes, contact lenses instead of my old clunky glasses. I'd even started working out, building muscle, shedding the soft, doughy physique of my former life. I was standing at the bar, sipping a non-alcoholic drink, scanning the crowd, when I saw her. Madison. She was even more beautiful than I remembered, her blonde hair cascading down her shoulders, her designer dress clinging to her curves, a diamond necklace glittering at her throat. She was on the arm of a man, tall, handsome, and radiating an aura of wealth and power. Derek, no doubt, the man she'd left me for. They were laughing, their heads close together, their bodies touching. They looked like the perfect couple, the epitome of success and happiness. But I knew better. I moved closer, deliberately placing myself within earshot, focusing my mind on Madison, reaching out to touch her thoughts. I hate him, I heard, the thought a sharp, bitter spike of resentment. He's so controlling, so possessive. Everything has to be his way. Another thought followed, tinged with regret, with a flicker of something that might have been longing. I should have never left Ethan. He was good. He actually cared about me. My lips curled into a faint, almost imperceptible smile. It was working. My plan, my carefully crafted strategy was unfolding exactly as I'd intended. And then she saw me. Her laughter died in her throat, her eyes widening in disbelief. She stared at me, her mouth slightly agape, as if she were seeing a ghost. "Ethan?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the din of the party. Derek, sensing her shift in attention, turned to follow her gaze. He frowned, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Do you know this guy, Madison?" he asked, his voice laced with a possessive jealousy. Madison hesitated, her mind racing. She couldn't deny knowing me, not entirely, but she couldn't admit the truth either. He's an old acquaintance," she stammered, her voice faltering. "From a long time ago." She approached me, her smile forced, her eyes pleading. She was playing a role, pretending to be polite, pretending to be friendly, pretending that our past, our breakup, our betrayal had never happened. "He looks different, rich, confident. What happened to him?" Her thoughts were a jumble of confusion, curiosity, and a flicker of attraction. "Ethan," she said, her voice a little too bright, a little too forced. "It's good to see you." "Madison," I replied, my voice cool and even. "You look well?" I let the silence hang in the air, a subtle, unspoken accusation. I knew she was uncomfortable, that she was struggling to reconcile the man standing before her with the loser she'd left behind. He couldn't possibly know, she thought, a flicker of fear crossing her mind. "This is Derek," she said, gesturing towards her companion. "Derek, this is Ethan." Derek extended his hand, his grip firm, his eyes assessing. I shook his hand, reading his thoughts with ease. "Competition. Gotta put him in his place." "Nice to meet you, Ethan," Derek said, his voice condescending. "Madison's told me a little about you." "All good things, I hope," I replied, my smile unwavering. The conversation was stilted, awkward, filled with veiled insults and unspoken tensions. But I played along, enjoying their discomfort, savoring the moment. I was in control now. I held all the cards. And Madison, the woman who had broken my heart, the woman who had left me for dead, was starting to realize that she'd made a terrible mistake. It was my turn to play, and I had a feeling she wouldn't like this game. The game was on, and this time I was playing to win. Not just win, but to utterly and completely dismantle the lives of those who had wronged me. Madison was the first target, and her arrogant, controlling boyfriend Derek was the perfect tool. I didn't rush things. I didn't make any sudden moves. I played it cool, casual, letting Madison come to me, letting her believe that she was the one in control. I'd run into her accidentally at a few more social events, always polite, always charming, always subtly highlighting my newfound success and confidence. I'd let her catch glimpses of my expensive watch, my tailored suit, my confident demeanor. I was the man she'd always wanted, the man she'd thrown away. And I could see the regret, the longing, the desire in her eyes, and hear it echoing in her thoughts. "He's changed. He's powerful. I made a mistake." I even started bumping into Derek. I was overly friendly. He, of course, didn't know what to think. "Who is this guy? And why does Madison keep looking at him?" I'd drop hints about my business ventures, my connections, my influence. I made myself seem like someone important, someone to be reckoned with. I need to keep an eye on this guy. He took it as a challenge, of course. Meanwhile, I was digging. Using my mind-reading ability, I delved into Derek's life, uncovering his secrets, his weaknesses, his vulnerabilities. He was a crook, a fraud, a man who'd built his empire on lies and deception. He had offshore accounts, illegal deals, a whole network of shady connections. He was a house of cards, waiting for the slightest breeze to topple it. I started small, subtly sabotaging his deals, leaking information to his competitors, planting doubts in the minds of his investors. I was a ghost, an unseen force, undermining his every move, all while maintaining the facade of the friendly, unassuming Ethan. Madison, of course, was oblivious to all of this. She was too busy trying to rekindle our relationship, too caught up in her own regrets and desires. "Ethan, I've been thinking a lot about us," she said one evening, during one of our chance encounters at a gallery opening. "About what happened. About my mistake." "Madison," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "We had some good times, but that's in the past." "He's playing hard to get. I like it. I can win him back. I know I can." Her thoughts were a transparent, pathetic display of self-delusion. She thought she could manipulate me, that she could use her beauty, her charm, to regain her former position. She had no idea that the tables had turned, that I was the one manipulating her. "I've changed, Ethan," she insisted, placing a hand on my arm, her touch sending a shiver of disgust down my spine. "I'm not the same person I was. I realize now what's truly important. Money, status, power, he has it all now, and I want it back." I smiled, a cold, empty smile. "We've all changed, Madison. It's called life." I gave her a small piece. just enough to let her believe that she was the only one for me, and she was playing right into my hands. The plan was set. I had all the pieces in place. Derek was teetering on the brink of ruin, his empire crumbling around him. Madison was blinded by her own greed and ambition, convinced that she could win me back. It was time for the final act, the grand finale. The moment when I would reveal the truth, expose their lies, and watch as their carefully constructed world came crashing down around them. And I would savor every second of it. The dominoes started to fall, one by one, with a precision that was almost beautiful. I'd orchestrated it all, a symphony of destruction, and now I was ready to watch the performance. First, Derek's business deals started to unravel. The investments I'd subtly sabotaged turned sour. The clients I'd warned off with carefully planted rumors pulled their funding. The partners I'd turned against him with whispers of his treachery demanded their money back. He was hemorrhaging cash, his reputation in tatters, his empire crumbling before his eyes. Then came the leaks. I'd gathered enough evidence of Derek's illegal activities, the offshore accounts, the bribery, the fraud, to bury him for life. I sent this information anonymously to the press, to the authorities, to his competitors. The news broke like a thunderclap. Headlines screamed accusations of corruption, fraud, and embezzlement. Derek's face, once so smug and confident, was plastered across every news channel, his expression a mask of shock and disbelief. How could this happen? Who betrayed me? His thoughts were a chaotic mess of fear, anger, and denial. He suspected everyone, trusted no one. He was a drowning man, grasping at straws, his world collapsing around him. I watched it all unfold from a safe distance, a ghost in the machine, enjoying the fruits of my labor. It was a cold, calculated satisfaction, a sense of justice served, of wrongs righted. Madison, of course, was devastated. She'd hitched her wagon to a falling star, and now she was being dragged down with him. She tried to distance herself, to claim she knew nothing, but it was too late. The damage was done. He lied to me. He used me. I have to get out of this. I have to find Ethan. Her thoughts were a jumble of panic, regret, and a desperate hope that I, the man she'd once discarded, would somehow save her. The authorities came knocking, of course. Investigators, lawyers, police officers. They swarmed Derek's office, his home, his life, seizing assets, freezing accounts, gathering evidence. He tried to fight, to deny, to bluster his way out of it, but the evidence was overwhelming. I'd made sure of it. I even made an anonymous call to the police, providing them with the final piece of the puzzle, the location of Derek's secret offshore accounts, the accounts he'd used to hide his ill-gotten gains. Who is this? How do you know about this? The detective's thoughts were sharp, suspicious. Let's just say, I'm a concerned citizen, I replied, my voice disguised by a voice modulator. And I believe in justice. I hung up, a faint smile playing on my lips. Justice. It was a word that had lost all meaning for me years ago, but now I was reclaiming it. I watched as Derek was arrested, his face pale and drawn, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and despair. He was led away in handcuffs, the cameras flashing, the reporters shouting questions. He was ruined, financially, professionally, personally. His life, as he knew it, was over. And Madison? Madison was left with nothing. Her dreams of wealth and status shattered, her reputation in tatters, her future uncertain. She was alone, desperate, and completely, utterly lost. She had absolutely no idea who was responsible. But she would. Soon enough she would know, and the knowledge would break her. The text message arrived late one night, a week after Derek's arrest. It was from Madison. Ethan, please. I need to see you. Can we talk? I stared at the message, my expression unreadable. I'd expected this, of course. It was the inevitable conclusion to my carefully orchestrated plan, the desperate plea for help, the attempt at reconciliation, the final, crushing humiliation. I agreed to meet her. Not out of any lingering affection, any flicker of forgiveness, but because I wanted to witness her downfall firsthand. I wanted to see the look in her eyes when she realized that I was the architect of her destruction. I chose the location. The same coffee shop where she'd broken up with me 6 years ago. A symbolic gesture. A way of bringing our twisted story full circle. I arrived early, taking a seat at the same table where she'd delivered her cold, calculated rejection. The memories flooded back. The pain, the humiliation, the sense of worthlessness. But this time, I wasn't the victim. This time, I was in control. She arrived a few minutes later, looking shattered. Gone was the perfectly coiffed hair, the designer clothes, the confident demeanor. She was dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, her face pale and drawn, her eyes red-rimmed and haunted. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "thank you for meeting me." She sat down across from me, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She looked small, vulnerable, pathetic. I don't know where to start, she began, her voice choked with emotion. Everything's fallen apart. Derek, he's gone. My life. It's over. I remained silent, watching her, listening not just to her words, but to her thoughts. I need him. I need him to save me. He's my only hope. The desperation was palpable, a raw, primal fear that radiated from her like a toxic cloud. I made a mistake, Ethan, she continued, tears streaming down her face. A terrible mistake. I should have never left you. I should have never listened to him. She looked at me, her eyes pleading, searching for any sign of forgiveness, of understanding. I was wrong, Ethan, she said, her voice cracking. I was so focused on money, on status, on all the wrong things. I didn't realize what I had. I didn't appreciate you. I didn't... She paused, taking a deep breath, her gaze locking onto mine. I miss you, Ethan. I miss us. I still love you. The words hung in the air, a blatant, desperate lie, and I heard the truth. The raw, unfiltered truth echoing in her mind. If he takes me back, I'll own him again. I'll be set for life. He's rich now, successful. I can manipulate him. I know I can. My lips curled into a cold, mirthless smile. She hadn't changed. She was still the same manipulative, self-serving woman she'd always been. She was just playing a different game, using different tactics. You don't love me, Madison, I said, my voice devoid of any emotion. You never did. She flinched, her eyes widening in surprise. What? What are you talking about? I know what you're thinking, Madison, I continued, my voice a low, chilling whisper. I know everything. Her face went white, her carefully constructed facade crumbling before my eyes. How could you possibly know that? I leaned forward, my gaze locking onto hers, letting her see the cold, hard truth in my eyes. Let's just say, I have a unique ability, a gift. I can hear your thoughts, Madison. Every lie, every manipulation, every selfish desire. I can see right through you. She stared at me, her mouth agape, her mind reeling. She was trying to process what I was saying, trying to find a way to deny it, to explain it away. But she couldn't. He's reading my mind. It's impossible. It's insane. Her thoughts were a jumble of fear, disbelief, and a growing, sickening sense of dread. "You think you're so smart, Madison," I said, my voice dripping with contempt. "You think you can play people, use them, discard them. You thought you could destroy me, that you could get away with it." I stood up, towering over her, letting her feel the full weight of my power, my control. "But you were wrong, Madison. You underestimated me. You underestimated the power of knowing. And now you're going to pay the price." I leaned in close, my face inches from hers, my voice a low, venomous hiss. "I orchestrated all of this, Madison. Derek's downfall, your ruin, everything. I played you both. I turned you against each other. I watched as your lives crumbled around you." Her eyes were wide with terror, her body trembling. She was broken, defeated, utterly and completely destroyed. "You were never my wife, Madison. Not truly. You were a stepping stone, something to be used. Just a snake I forgot to step on the first time." I turned and walked away, leaving her there, alone in the ruins of her own choices, the echo of my words ringing in her ears. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I knew I'd broken her. I'd taken everything from her, just as she'd taken everything from me. My revenge was complete, and it tasted bitter. I had destroyed her. That much was for sure, but at what cost?